Hi, and welcome to this special edition of Omni Edition Garden City. I'm Dan York with City Manager and Chief of Police Bob Muery. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here, Dan.
Myriad of subjects we're going to talk about on the show today. But to start things off, we want to talk about the Public Safety Millage that is coming up in August. Residents will have an opportunity to vote on a public safety millage that is a renewal of the public safety millage that currently exists in the community. Is that correct?
That's correct. This will be on the August ballot, and it is for 3.5 mills, which is a renewal of the millage that was passed 4 years ago.
Right.
This millage will be for a 5-year period, but it's still the same amount.
Right. So 3.5 mills that is currently included in the 15-16 budget that has been in the last two budgets that really has amounted to about, $1.7 million? At least that's what it's projected for in the next year?
Right. It's somewhere around there. Of course, since a millage is based on the value of a house, as our homes are recovering and their values are recovering, there's a slight uptick there, but the Headley Amendment and Prop A limit just exactly how much of an increase we can take this year. It's a 1%, a little over 1%, I believe.
Okay.
So yes, that'll be because our next collection of the public safety millage, which occurs in July, is our last on the previous public safety millage.
Sure.
And we looked at the impact, the value that public safety millage was bringing to the budget. The council elected to attempt to renew it.
Okay.
Take it to the voters.
All right, so let's go back a couple of steps. This all happened when, in the beginning, about 2009, more or less, when the economy started to tick down, and down. The value of the homes in Garden City, as it did throughout all of Michigan and most of the country for a while at least, the value of homes came down so dramatically that the city's tax base, the city's tax income, was also affected dramatically. And in addition to that, there was a cut in revenue sharing from the state of Michigan. So we had to scramble to figure out how to keep a city alive with this reduced revenue, how we could continue to provide services. We went through a series of cost-cutting measures that included employee layoffs, elimination of some services, and also the public safety millage. Mm-hmm. And that got us to a point where we've had these same services for roughly 4 years, and we're able to maintain these services. Sure, which are still reduced services from what we had before. I guess we should clarify that even though we've been able to maintain the current level, this current level is a new reality and a much lower norm than what we had provided in the past.
That's absolutely. The police department that I can speak of firsthand had 47 officers about 10, 12 years ago, and we now have 30 in the budget. That has cut into some of the things we're able to do because there are fewer officers on the road. We cut our road patrol by 25%, and we cut our detective bureau. It's impacted some of the outside programs, our crime prevention that we're still trying to hold together with duct tape and things, but we're still trying to hold that program together. But it impacted DPS, it impacted the fire department. Positions went unfilled, positions were eliminated. The Parks and Recreation program, it didn't have a huge staff to begin with, but it suffered. And of course, the library was on the block for a while. The voters stepped up and approved a 1 mil to keep the library operating.
Right. So many changes throughout. We cut city hours, we cut city hall hours, we cut city hall staff also. So a lot of changes went into this before an attempt to get a millage was passed.
We got back to a point where if we did other cuts within the city and other reductions in services, 3.5 mills devoted to public safety could keep our service at this level, which we felt was the lowest tolerable level for our first responders.
Okay. And keep in mind this $1.7 million that is generated from the current millage that we have and would be generated going forward if this millage were to pass. Again, that is not the entire police budget. That is not the entire fire budget. These are just supplemental to keep those departments whole as it is now. The equivalent really of 17 total employees 17 total public safety employees, 17 total first responders, however you want to refer to it. But that's only 17 people of those two departments combined.
That's correct. That's you figure a cop or a firefighter, a nice average, just for an estimate, is about $100,000 per employee for wages, benefits. So if we were to have to go out and find $1.7 million, that's probably where it would have to come from, because, quite frankly, we scaled all the other departments back to where they can't afford to lose another body. So this police and fire would probably be the only place we could look. So that's probably what we're talking about.
Okay. We still have 100 miles of roads. That's never changed. So even though we have a lot less money to operate the city with, we still have 100 miles of roads to patrol, or we still have 100 miles of roads that the fire department has to respond to. We haven't really seen a tremendous drop in population. Once we drop down into the just under $30,000 or 30,000 person mark, and that happened a while ago, that has not been a rapid drop. So we're still dealing with relatively the same amount of citizens that we dealt with 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years ago.
That's correct. Our population has dropped slightly since the 2010 census. There are various guesses out there, but we've lost 200, 300 people. But we're working on some of these things to get some people back too.
Sure.
So that's kind of a chicken and an egg thing. Do we bring them back before we have services in place? Do we get the services in place so we feel better about trying to recruit families to Garden City?
Right, and again, because of Headley, because of Proposal A, and these are laws that were passed a long time ago. And this is the first year pretty much that our tax revenues have been stable. Up until this recent budget year, there's been a decline every year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so now we're stable, and let's assume we're going to stay stable. Even if the property values were to shoot up rapidly, again, as you explained at the beginning of this, because of Headley, because of Proposal A, our revenue to the city can only increase incrementally. It can't keep pace with those increases, and that was done because at the time inflation was so high, the value of homes was going up so quick that these laws were passed to make sure that the city's revenues just didn't explode and that people's taxes didn't get out of control. But now it's working in reverse and punishing a lot of cities like Garden City.
That's exactly right. If tomorrow you woke up and your home was a $500,000 home, the next time that assessments are made, you would not see an increase equal to the total value of your home. It's capped, it's limited, and the Headley and Proposition A, those were two things that we talked about a few years ago, perhaps taking a Headley override to the general public, but councils took the pulse of the citizens and felt like there is no point in that.
Sure.
That the citizens are just quite satisfied.
And this is something the citizens would accept, which is a public safety millage.
Yes.
Which we should clarify is a dedicated public safety millage. So the money that has been collected so far through the current public safety millage only goes to police and fire, as would money from any future public safety millage.
That's correct. It's devoted to, it's exclusive, it doesn't get loaned to other departments or used by other departments, and it enables us to keep up. This would be it would be quite a challenge if police and fire were to have to find a way to eliminate $1.7 million
Sure.
from the budget.
And to be as clear about this as we possibly can, when this was originally passed, there was a shifting around and a reallotment of funds to make sure that some of these other departments were able to stay open. But this money that came from the public safety millage, again, only goes to public safety.
That's correct. And it is now, it's a part of the budget now. Do we rely on it? Yes, this current budget relies on that public safety millage. Our projections for future budgets rely on a renewal of this public safety millage. If that doesn't occur, we'll have to dig in and find a way to reduce the budget by $1.7 million.
Okay. And as far as the numbers that have been provided to us from the clerk's office, Currently, the average home value in Garden City, and this is the total value, not the taxable value or the SEV, but the average home value in Garden City is approximately $70,000 now. So that means the average resident would continue to pay about $120. Again, this is money that you're already paying. This is not in and above what you're paying now on your taxes.
That's correct. It's a continuation of what has been paid, or we actually have one more collection date to go for the past 4 years. Mm-hmm. It's not an increase. It has. I feel confident it's nobody's plan that this goes on forever. We were hoping that 4 years, and council determined that 4 years. They wanted to put a sunset on this. They didn't want it to go off into perpetuity. So they put that 4-year limit on it. Now, at the time, we were just guessing. And it was a pretty good guess because the decline has stopped. The recovery is happening. It's just not happening quickly enough for us to say we no longer need that. There were a couple of other things we did. Streetlight assessments, which is a little over somewhere $35 a year for each resident. That's something I know that city administration and the elected officials would like to see go away at some point. Mm-hmm. These are all things that were measures put in place to get us through this economic crisis, and it did get us through.
And the object was to revisit it again in 4 years, and that's what the council has done, and that's why the residents are being given the opportunity to vote on it again, just for a 5-year period now instead of a 4-year period.
Exactly.
And $1.7 million, to kind of put it in perspective, the city's overall general fund budget is just a touch over $16 million. So there is no longer $1.7 million of fat to trim within the city's budget.
That's my opinion. City administration's opinion. I believe the opinion of the council. Yes, and quite honestly, today, if you put a gun to my head and told me I've got to trim 1.7, the only place I could look would be public safety.
Absolutely. And this money, again, is money that is earmarked exclusively. I don't want to reiterate this too much, that it goes exclusively to police and to fire.
That's correct. And you can rest assured that the chiefs of those two departments watch it very closely.
All right. And that opportunity to vote on that would be on August 4th.
August 4th.
All right. Let's talk about some other things. We haven't had you here in a while. Just recently, on the subject of money, council just recently passed the general fund budget, or the budget for 15 and 16. Not a lot of surprises there, were there?
No, very few changes. There's a very small increase in the budget because, quite frankly, we're acting and reacting to the leveling, the stabilization of our revenue stream. So just a few things, nothing grand. We didn't see any major jumps in anybody's budget, and I think we'll get through this year.
Okay, and not every town around here can say that.
No,
Wayne is just battling and struggling.
I'm very pleased. Of course, I'd like to take some credit, but the fact is that the previous city managers, the previous councils, they had their eyes on this, and they knew, and they started taking action, going back as far as Dave Harvey, and quite possibly even before that. But I was more closely involved with
Sure.
Dave Harvey and then Darwin McClary. So when I stepped in, I was able to simply continue the sort of philosophy, and it has been a good philosophy. Yes, you look at cities around us that continue to struggle, and I'm very grateful and thankful to be a part of the Garden City community.
And the auditors have pounded us that we needed to have fund balance. It's a little counterintuitive sometimes when the city is struggling to leave X amount of dollars setting on aside for fund balance. But really, it's good business, it's good government, and in many instances, it's required for some of the things we try to do to make sure that we have some stable fund balance.
That's correct. For instance, our rating, our Standard & Poor's rating, which impacts what we pay for bonds, that fund balance is part of the calculation into that. Other things, little surprises. We take a look at a neighboring community that just got hit with a massive lawsuit that they settled, and the taxpayers are going to have to bear the burden of that because that city doesn't have the money. We have some money. We can deal with surprises. We can deal with urgencies that might come up. We've been very fortunate, and I hope we continue to be fortunate.
Okay.
But I'm one who is, I do not feel the fund balance should be used to pay day-to-day operating expenses. If we discover we're going in a hole, we shouldn't turn to that fund balance to spend the money, because that philosophy has a short life ahead of it.
It's a one-time fix.
And if you've got enough money in there, you might be able to do it 2 or 3 years, but that's going to run out. You need to find some other way to quit turning to that piggy bank to pay the bills.
Sure.
So, for instance, we've utilized a portion in the 15-16 budget of the fund balance for the parking lot over at the ice arena. That's a one-time expense, and that's not a bad use of that money when one considers how that parking lot in Garden City Park reflects on the community as a whole, on the liabilities that arise from a poorly maintained parking lot. So that's money well spent. But if we were continuing to have to dip into the fund balance to just pay the day-to-day expenses, we need to look again and again at how to cut those expenses.
Sure. One of the things that we are able to do coming up in the next budget year is a sidewalk program to try to replace some of the bad sidewalk in our community. We have 100 miles of roads, which means we don't have 100 miles of sidewalks, but darn close.
Very close.
And that means it has to be looked at, because heaved sidewalks, broken sidewalks, cracked sidewalks cause injuries and cause people to get hurt.
Right, and that has cost us some money in the recent past. But we had to kind of back off of the sidewalk program, again, due to economics at one point. Now, the DPS director, Kevin Roney, who has been here for over a year now, this has been very high on his list right from the beginning. We brought in Hennessy Engineering, who did a city-wide survey. They identified the areas where sidewalks were badly damaged or with heaves, trip hazards of over 3 inches, over 4 inches, so 2 inches. So we identified the worst of the worst. We went out to bid. It was a surprise to us. The bid came in far higher than we expected. And we were a little, that sort of brought the program back a little, or it reduced what we planned to do, but we're moving forward with that. It's going on right now.
Okay. And this is a multi-year program or a single-year program?
Our intent is that it's a multi-year program. Of course, that will be contingent upon whether or not we're able to afford it. Now, part of what we're doing here is we're hoping that the money that returns from work being done this year, we'll be able to add to the program next year and expand it slightly. And as we continue down and people, the homeowners pay for the sidewalks, that we'll be able to expand it a little. So we're kind of counting on that return.
Okay, very good. Talking about construction, a couple of positive signs inside of the community as far as some new construction going on, and a piece of property that I thought may never be occupied again, just west of the KFC, the Kentucky Fried Chicken, at Ford Road and Harrison. It looks like we'll have a new tenant on the vacant land that used to be Rally's.
Yep, we were sad to see Rally's go many years ago, but
some of us more than others.
But Dunkin' Donuts, after an absence from Garden City, is coming back. They'll be on the next Planning Commission agenda. We're very excited. They're very serious about this, so we're looking forward to that. Okay. And Garden City will once again have a Dunkin' Donuts.
And we haven't heard anything from McDonald's in a while, have we?
No, we haven't. Our last contact with them was that we should expect to hear from them in 90 to 120 days. We're just about at the outer edge of that, so I expect to be hearing from them shortly. Clearly, we will not be part of their 2015 construction schedule, But I feel like we've made enough progress here that we will be part of the 2016 construction schedule. However, if you've been following the economic news about McDonald's, they're closing some non-producing restaurants, which I certainly don't think includes the one in Garden City.
Sure.
I get 3 meals a day there myself. But I don't know whether it will affect their construction plans
Sure.
at all.
Okay.
So we'll keep an eye on that.
And part of the reason that the McDonald's construction was delayed is because the city rejected their first proposal and tried to get them to conform and come more into line into what the city's trying to do in its downtown, as far as at least appearance-wise. Because that's a pretty critical corner to Garden City.
It is.
Ford
It
and
is.
Middlebelt.
It is. Yes, you're right that many people felt that it did not really fit what we were trying to achieve there at the Ford and Middlebelt primary intersection of the city. McDonald's worked with us. There was a little pushing and pulling along the way, but we feel like we've reached a good spot in this, and we have a design and a layout that's going to be acceptable to both parties, and we're looking forward to moving forward.
Okay. And a couple of other pieces of property. One, the Knights of Columbus property on Ford Road that was demolished probably about a year ago, I guess, that had a potential tenant. Looks like that project has fallen through for now.
It has stalled. Ziedman's Jewelry and Loan was going to come in and put in a store there. They were very excited about it. I don't know what has transpired along the way, but we reached a point where they have decided not to move forward with that particular project, but they are still going to move forward with something along the lines of a strip center, something like that.
On that property?
On that property.
Okay.
And, they're anxious to buy up. There's a little more property that extends to the east that they would like to buy up. However, they haven't been able to come to terms with the
Now we
owner.
say they, that's a developer as opposed to Ziedman's themselves?
I actually believe it's the Ziedman's group themselves.
Okay. All right. And then we have another piece of property that we were happy, I guess, to make it vacant, which was Merriman and Ford Road, because what was there was quite blighted. But obviously, it'd be nice to get something going there.
It would be. I know that Dunkin' Donuts looked at that corner. Unfortunately, again, they couldn't come to an agreement on terms, so they looked elsewhere. Would love to see that corner be developed, but at least there's not blight sitting on the corner. The Penske building, that's at least how we all refer to
Sure.
it. That auto repair shop in front of Kmart has finally been knocked down. They do have plans, but they're in the middle of negotiations, so they're keeping those plans very close to their vest.
Okay.
But they're not just knocking down the building and going away.
Okay.
That is not the plan.
It's with a plan.
There is a plan in place.
All right. And one piece of property we didn't talk about before we came on, but the former Metropolitan Lincoln Mercury, Stu Evans Lincoln Mercury, as frustrating as it may be for people to see it empty, again, that is not a piece of property without a plan, because it does have an owner with a great interest in developing it, which is the Suburban Group, correct?
That's correct. The Suburban Group is still very excited about that piece of property. They just have not determined what direction they're going to go in yet. They continue to do an excellent job of maintaining it, so I'm pretty happy about that. It would just kill me to drive down Ford Road and see this largest piece of real estate frontage on Ford Road with this terrible, terrible maintenance program. Suburban understood that right from the beginning, and they've done a good job of maintaining it.
Okay.
And of course, this is in the hands of the private market. So if
Sure.
they choose to let it sit empty while they develop their plan, there's not much we can do.
And this is a group with a track record. This is not a fly-by-night operation. They have several large automotive complexes around Metro Detroit.
This is a group with an excellent track record. I was very pleased when they came in and took over the former Crestwood Dodge. I was very pleased when they came in and made the decision to take the old Stu Evans or Metropolitan Lincoln Mercury property. And then, if you go right next door, Gordon Chevrolet, they're doing some expanding over there. They're adding to their display lot, and it's kind of dressing up Ford Road a little more, which is very pleasing.
Okay. Last subject, body cameras for police officers. Obviously, there has been a lot of attention, probably far too much attention in the chronicling of what public safety officers do. And for a variety of reasons, it's a good idea to have some way to keep track of what's going on with our police. And the answer now is body cameras.
That's correct. And I have to step backwards a little. We were one of the first police agencies around with in-car cameras. We rushed out and got those cameras and put them in the cars, but we got basically the first generation. They were bulky, difficult to operate and maintain. It was really problematic. So as these failed one by one, we got out of the in-car camera business and learned a little lesson. Rushing out there and buying the first model off the production line is not necessarily the smartest move. So that makes us one of the few agencies around that doesn't have in-car cameras. Now, the body camera discussion begins throughout the nation, and because body cameras are considerably cheaper than in-car cameras, we see the opportunity. We see that we have funding available from drug seizure money, some capital improvement money we didn't use, and yes, we'll get out in front of this. These cameras are a proven product. They've already been durably tested, and we're satisfied that it's a good product that we're spending the city's money on.
And this will take a little time to roll out.
It is. It's time consuming. There are a variety of internal policies that have to be written covering these cameras. It's not just a matter of slapping a camera on and going around recording. We have officers who go interview people at the hospital. Well, we have that whole HIPAA thing, and whether or not we should be wandering around in a hospital with a camera on is something we have to examine from a legal standpoint, from a moral standpoint. There are other issues when you're dealing with certain types of victims and whether or not they should be recorded on a body camera. So we have to work on all of that. Additionally, we need to fly our technical support out from Scottsdale, Arizona, from the TASER headquarters, who will help us with the rollout. As you can imagine, a lot of body cameras are being purchased right now, so
Sure.
scheduling is a little bit of a problem for them.
Right.
So it will take us a little while to roll them out. They've already been received. They're already sitting over in Lieutenant Zimmer's office waiting, and we look forward to deploying them because I'm very comfortable that these cameras will be a help to the law enforcement in Garden City and the good citizens of Garden City, and not a hindrance.
Sure. I said that was the last thing, but I lied. One other subject. An example of one person can make a difference. Florence Park.
Yes.
A neighborhood park that I bet some people don't even know exists, located behind the former Florence Elementary School and the former United Christian School there on Florence and Middle Belt. A young lady came to the city asking for help, trying to get that park cleaned up, trying to get the drainage fixed in that park, and there's been a lot of progress made in a very short period of time.
There sure has. Katie Smith organized a little grassroots committee, and I don't want to slight the figure skating club, who, through, I believe, Opal Farron, who uses that park on a regular basis, they also were organizing a cleanup at the park. And so the forces joined, and they were out there and did an amazing job on day one. They went back again. They cleaned it up some more. One of the major issues with that park is drainage. It had been looked at previously by other administrations and was decided that it was too expensive to do. We went out and took a look at it and found that we could do it in phases and perhaps do phase one right now to try and get an abundance of water off that park. The work's already done. I believe it's done. I know it started, and I believe it's done now. And we have some other things, some playground safety material coming in to put under the equipment. It's here. We're just waiting for the park to dry up a little. But yes, it's Katie Smith just, she saw something, she jumped on it, and she wouldn't let it up, and she even squeezed a $100 donation out of Mayor Walker.
Well, there you go. There you go. All right, so not all bad news around Garden City these days.
No, and as a matter of fact, one of the things we have not discussed, but I would like to bring up, excuse me, is the Garden City Hospital. We've visited with them several times. They have a lot of plans regarding changes and development within the hospital there, addition of space and some other things. We're going to see them adding a sidewalk along Maplewood that will connect all the way from Deering to Inkster, and then they're going to put a sidewalk on the Elmwood side on a portion of that. This is all, these are things they have to do for other improvements that they're making in the building. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be interesting what we see. You'll recall that they made a commitment when they bought that hospital that they were going to invest millions and millions of dollars. And
again, this is a private company now.
That's correct, a private entity. And the mayor and I have worked hard to hold their feet to the fire. We have frequent visits with them. What are you doing? When are you going to do it? What's the price tag on this? And the hospital has been great in working with us.
Very good. Well, good to hear that too. All right. Well, August 4th then, not only is there the Public Safety Millage, but there is also a mayoral primary on that day. Not a council primary, but a mayoral primary on August 4th. Information on the police and fire millage, information on the election, as well as a Meet the Candidates program and a video explaining the police and fire millage will all be available, and you can find it all through the city's website, www.gardencitymi.org. Bob Muery, thanks very much for spending time with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thanks very much for watching Omni Edition Garden City. I'm Dan York. Good night, everybody.